again, Psych 2231 students, or whoever's joining us for this screencast. Now I'm going to show you part 2 of making bar charts, where we're using an independent variable to show group differences on a dependent variable that's continuous. Let's say, for example, that we stick with our example of seeing whether there are gender differences for males and females on the temperature at which they prefer to keep their houses. I'm going to be looking up as my screen is above you. If we look at Microsoft Word, we can also build a really nice figure here, a bar chart that would show those group differences. We would do that by going to Insert and Chart. And what we call a bar chart, Microsoft calls a column chart. So we're going to stick with a clustered column chart here. We could do a bar chart and it would put everything kind of sideways. There might be reasons to do that. Psychology tends to use these ones called column charts, or where they're going vertically instead of horizontally. So we're going to select that clustered column chart and click OK. And it will give us a default chart and space to actually type in the data. What's nice about building your charts in Microsoft Word instead of SPSS is if you find you had a typo or something, you can just change the data out without having to recreating the entire graph. It's wondering how many things you want for each variable. So it will start out with 4 categories and 3 series. These are outcomes. This is your levels of your independent variable. For this one, we just have males and females and 1 outcome, temperature. So I'm going to select it down to here. I'm clicking and dragging so that I'm telling it, hey, I only have 1 outcome and 2 groups. So I will type in temperature for that outcome. And then since we put males first and females second in the other graph, I'm going to put females first and then males second here, because why not? All right, so what we'll need to do here is figure out what those values were from something like SPSS. So assuming that you had run your graph in SPSS before, one of the things that you can have it do is add the actual numbers for the chart. When you click on the SPSS bar chart and go to Elements, you can have it show or hide the data labels. When you first make the chart, they're hidden. So all you need to do is put Show Data Labels, and it will start bringing up this other box to show you what those actual temperatures are. So now I know that males like 71.48, females like 70.85 for their house temperature. So I can go back to my document in Microsoft Word. Again, I'll double check. Females, 70.85. Males, 71.48. And whatever I type in here, notice that Microsoft Word is already adapting. Now, why does this difference look bigger than we made in SPSS? Well, in part because the axis is only showing a small range of numbers for our one in Microsoft Word versus a large range of numbers from 0 up till 80 in the one in SPSS. We'll want to change this a little bit because this is a little bit misleading, right? Here it looks like there's a difference between males and females, but we consider the whole range of scores. Not so much. All right, if you can move this Excel box, which is going to use your data here in SPSS, to the side, or you can close it. I like to leave it open just in case I change my mind. And then you can click on the graph itself here in order to make some changes. So let's say you want to make the differences between females and males more visible by color or pattern. Well, if you click one box, this option pops up at the side for you to change the colors. So let's say I don't want to use blue, and I don't want to be so sexist as to use blue and pink. Maybe I want to make females orange, and I want to make males green, because that looks better to me. Right? You could also do pictures or textures and work through and find out what some of those other options are, or like a graded fill, where it can be shadows and things. So you can play around with this a little bit. I'm going to stick with orange and green. I also want to add some other things to my graph. So I'm not content with it saying temperature. I want a better descriptive title. I'd like an axis label over here and over here. And so if you push this green plus sign, it will show you some other things, like Hey, I want the axis titles where I can say this is gender and that's temperature. Maybe you like the data labels, so it will actually show you those number values instead of estimating it. Maybe you want the data in a table at the bottom. Maybe you'd like error bars so you can see how much each group varies. So you don't necessarily want to include all these things, like it's redundant to have the number here and here, but you can play around a little bit with what looks best to you with this plus sign. What I have done is showed you how a nice graph can look when you make it in Word. Personally, I think this one here looks a lot cleaner and nicer than the one that SPSS made me up here. So a lot of times when you're publishing in journals, or if you want to make your stats and methods teachers very happy, you can build your bar charts in Microsoft Word. And again, the big benefit is if you decide to add more factors or you're like, whoops, that was a typo, you can change it and you don't have to rebuild the whole graph. So while I will accept for 2231 graphs that are made appropriately up here in SPSS, it's even better to try building them this way. You get a little bit more information and it looks nice and clean like journals like it. Happy graph making!